Hi everyone, I'm Mary Ellen. I'm the music therapist for Transitions Hospice. And let's take a look at what love was like in the 50s, which is something that I know many of you who are listening to this are going to have firsthand knowledge about. So there were sock hops. That was definitely one place where you met people. You left your saddle shoes or your penny loafers at the door of the gym and you went in and you danced. There's a big difference between the first part of the 50s, which is right ahead of rock and roll, and a little bit later on. So we'll talk about some of both. But first, let's pretend that we're at the sock hop. If you were a girl, then maybe you had a shirtwaist dress with 4 petticoats underneath that took up half the space in your closet. Or maybe you wore a straight skirt, but you might have danced to one of these at the hop. And there's a number of different dances that are mentioned in there. And here's another one where it's really easy for you to kind of keep the beat. I should say that one of the things that I've discovered as I talk to people is that frequently couples will say to me, I will ask them, did you like to dance? Were you a good dancer? And the majority of the time, the wife will say that she was a good dancer, and her husband will say, not so much, 2 left feet, whatever. Any boy who was a really good dancer was like gold, because all we really wanted was for the guys to get away from the wall and dance. We didn't care if you were any good. We just wanted to dance. So here's another one. Even if you were a terrible dancer, you could do this one. Now, this is a little bit of a fudge because this is the 50s and this particular one was released in 1960, but I figured close enough. And that would be The Twist by Chubby Checker. And even if you stood there, you could do this. And I would encourage you, if you're sitting in a chair, as long as you're safe, don't get up and do this, not unless the staff thinks it's a good idea, but you can certainly twist to this one. Well, another source of information about the latest dances, and I know that a lot of you watched it, was American Bandstand. Dick Clark was the host. He'd have people on. It was filmed in Philadelphia, and they'd get kids afterwards and they'd say, "So what'd you think of that song?" Good beat. You could dance to it. And a lot of bands and singers made a name for themselves on the American Bandstand. And here's one that you certainly would have seen on American Bandstand. And again, it was a really easy one. And if you remember how people dressed on American Bandstand, the girls were always dressed up. They always had fancy dresses. The guys wore suits, or at the very least, nice shirts or whatever. Now, you know that everybody will be wearing something, and that's about as far as it goes. But see if you remember the stroll, which basically all you were doing, it was kind of a line dance. Come, let's stroll, stroll across the floor. Come, let's stroll, stroll across the floor. Now turn around, baby, let's stroll once more. Feels so good, take me by the hand. I feel so good, take me by the hand. And let's go strolling in Wonderland. Strolling, strolling, rock and rollin', strolling. Well, rock my soul, how I love to stroll. There's my love strolling in the door. There's my love strolling in the door. Baby, let's go strolling by the candy store. Speaking of candy stores, another thing that most towns had, we had one in Downers Grove where I grew up, and it was called the Candy Castle. And it wasn't just candy. You could go there and you could get a soda. And the cool thing was, as is shown in one of the slides, you'd share the soda. 2 straws, 1 soda. Very romantic, and also a money saver for kids who didn't have a lot of it. So another big part of the dating scene, it was very important, although this is my personal view, I've always thought it mattered a whole lot more to the guys than it did to the girls. But they were convinced that if you really wanted to catch a girl, you needed to have a great car. So guys would fix up cars, and sometimes they would cruise around. In our town, it was Top's Big Boy, which the restaurant management was not crazy about it, but that was what they did. And they would cruise up and down the street. And one of the bands that kind of personified that was the Beach Boys. And I'm not going to play their whole song, but I'm just going to take a couple of lines from 2 of their songs to kind of give you the idea. Here is a picture of a T-Bird from the 50s, which the girl must have had a lot of money. And it goes, and we'll have fun, 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 till her daddy takes her T-Bird away. Fun, fun, till her daddy And another Beach Boys song, which again, I picked because some of the lyrics sort of talk about what the culture was at the time. And now you don't see anybody going steady. First of all, people use apps on their phone, they text whatever. But back in the day, it was exclusivity, and the guy would give you his ring, which I recall my turned out to be future mother-in-law was not happy about the fact that they paid a bunch of bucks and what were you doing giving that girl your ring? But anyway, it's from I Get Around. Round, round, get around, I get around, get around, round, round, I get around, I get around. And then some of the words later. We always take my car cause it's never been beat, and we've never missed yet with the girls we meet. Well, the guys go steady cause it wouldn't be right to leave your best girl home on a Saturday night. Another feature of love in the 50s was cars with bench seats. And what this meant, given the culture of the time, was that you found a place where you hoped that the cops wouldn't be too vigilant. And if the lights were on and the windows were kind of steamed up, you kind of knew what was going inside. Could be innocent or not. Use your imagination. But at any rate, this particular song, while it doesn't exactly speak to that, has always made me think of those days. And it's Blueberry Hill by Fats Domino. Another part of the 50s dating scene was drive-in theaters. Somebody went to the drive-in, there was always the question, so did you watch the movie or not? And the interesting thing about drive-ins is that they've had a resurgence this year because of the pandemic. Regular theaters were closed, and so the drive-ins that were open did a terrific business. There's one not far from me, the McHenry Drive-In Theater, and they did all kinds of things. They did concerts, they did in-car graduations, and all sorts of things. But at any rate, there were lots of them in the 50s. And there's one song in particular that talks about a couple that went to the drive-in and how things didn't quite go as well as they had expected. And I should mention one thing. This particular song, which is Wake Up Little Susie by the Everly Brothers, was banned on some radio stations because they thought that it was too risque that the couple had been out all night, even if they supposedly fell asleep at the drive-in, which was a very public place. Nonetheless, there were radio stations that wouldn't play it. So at any rate, if you know this one, please join in, move to it, and sing along.